Perfect. All right, well, I'm going to start out today just with a brief introduction for those of you that I don't know. My name is Natalie Pixley. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at the Harford County Chamber of Commerce, celebrating 3 years now at the Chamber. Um, and I've had the great opportunity to not only be kind of in charge of marketing efforts here at the Chamber from the organization and nonprofit side, but then handling marketing initiatives for all of our Chamber members. So I get to work with all of our members, small businesses of all different shapes and sizes, to help with their marketing needs, which is something very near and dear to my heart. So just a little bit background, a little bit about me. I graduated with my undergrad in international development and then went on to get my MBA with a focus in social media marketing. And then coming out of graduation, I always wanted to focus on small business. And a lot of people don't realize in the marketing realm that the difference between small business marketing and much larger corporation marketing are very, very different things. So I've been very blessed with the opportunity to be here at the Chamber and to work with local businesses. And I'm also a business owner myself. My husband and I own Iron Rose Fencing. Yes, that is fencing with swords, not the fencing that goes around your backyard. And while my husband manages all of the administrative stuff for our business and the classes, I handle all the marketing. So I'm right there firsthand with you all, marketing my own business. So I'm definitely in the thick of it with you. So I hope today I can provide some insight, both on the side of some of the educational pieces, but then also doing it with you and seeing what works and what doesn't when it comes to local business. So let's get started. Here we go. All right, so just to highlight a couple things we're going to go over today. First, we're going to start off with spotting a successful social media post. What does that mean? What does that look like? And then we're going to talk a little bit about why you don't want your social media posts to go viral. And I'll have some tips and tricks for you instead of what to look for, how to execute posts that are most beneficial for your organization and not just because they're really popular on the internet. We're going to talk a little bit about how to create a community on social media. And then I'm going to jump into a little bit of email marketing and hopefully answer the question for you, is email marketing dead? Think about it now. And then we'll dive a little bit into the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to email marketing. And then we'll wrap it up today with some resources for Chamber members when it comes to different marketing things that you can take advantage of. So. And I will say, feel free to jump in with any questions as they come up. Feel free to drop them in the chat. I do have a couple moments here where we'll pause and take some time for questions, but definitely I want this to be as beneficial for you guys as possible. So please feel free to jump in with comments and questions. All right, so I want to open up with a really quick exercise here. Here we have two different social media posts. So I want you to take a look and think about which one of these posts would you say is the most successful post? Go ahead and take a look. You are not going to hurt my feelings either way. I created both of these posts. And I will tell you now that it is a trick question. But just go ahead and see, what would you say was the most successful? And just kind of think about it in the own context of your organization too. Good, good. Seeing a lot of votes for number 2. Awesome. All right. Well, let's break it down. All right. So taking a look at both of these posts. So obviously, when you look at post number 1, you can see it only has 1 like on it, right? Not really all that impressive. But what you can't see, and what I get to see kind of behind the scenes, and what you will get to see for things that you post for your business, this post had over 650 accounts that were reached. That's just, times that it popped up in different people's feeds. But this post also had an in-person interaction and 2 confirmed registrations. And I can say that because I was the one talking to people. So while this post only had 1 like on Facebook itself, there was something where I ended up being in a meeting later that day, and got to talk with somebody who said, "Oh, I saw your post this morning on Facebook. I'm really glad you're doing that event. I want to sign up. Thanks for sharing that." And then I could also see in that information as well that there were 2 confirmed people that had clicked on that link and then ended up registering for that event. So despite what you would say is probably not super successful in terms of likes or maybe even reach, um, I would say is successful in its own way purely because of that in-person interaction and the fact that the post worked. I wanted people to sign up for this webinar, and I confirmed that at least 2 people did off of this post. So that's really great. Now, as we look over at post number 2, obviously right off the bat, right? Many more interactions on this post, a lot more likes, plus you get a bunch of comments and shares and things like that. Along with that, this one had over 3,200 accounts that were reached through this post, but this one did not have any in-person or online follow-up. I didn't talk to anybody in person about this post, and nor was there really any opportunity built into the post itself for people to take any sort of action, right? This was a post for those that are familiar with our Coffee and Connections events. I do these posts just as like a recap of the event. So there's no like call to action for this type of post, right? There wasn't anything to register for or anything to learn about. It was more of just a recap of the morning event. So while you could say probably this was a lot more successful in the terms of the people reached, the people commenting and connecting, there wasn't any in-person or online follow-up, which in this case is a great thing, because like I said, there wasn't any action for people to take. So in this case, that was something where I wanted people to comment and connect. That's a networking event. We want people to continue to network and connect outside of that event, and that's a great way to do it. So I do this exercise purely to look at it like this. Different posts are going to be successful for different reasons. And just because something only has 1 like doesn't mean it wasn't successful, right? That first post was successful. I had people register for the event that I wanted them to register for. That's a win in my book. Whereas the second post was also a lot more successful. But the goal of that post was for people to connect with each other. And that's exactly what was happening in those comments and shares. So just goes to show, don't judge a book by its cover type of deal. Don't judge a social media post by the number of likes it has. They can be successful for a lot of different reasons. All right, and that is what we're going to jump into next. This whole concept of why you don't want your posts to go viral. There's this huge pressure now, kind of in this rise of social media influencers, right? That you have to have X number of views or X number of likes for a post to be successful. And when it comes to being a small business or a nonprofit, you really don't need to be looking at all of that. And it gets very confusing. So hopefully I can break this down a little bit better for you. So first we need to start with your overall goal. So your social media should always have a goal just as a whole in general. And I'll break this down a little bit later. So depending on your organization, depending on what you kind of have coming up in the next couple of months, think about what your top priorities are. You might just be trying to get as much visibility as possible, and that's great. Kind of think of your social media as that widest possible umbrella for your customer base, for your clientele. So obviously getting as much visibility as possible is going to be beneficial. But maybe you also want to focus on new customers, new clients, drawing people into your business to make purchases, right? You might also want to be looking at your community building. Maybe you have a lot of community resources that you want to share, things like that. So kind of think through each of these from the perspective of your business. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of overlap here, right? You're probably sitting here thinking, going, yes, 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 yes to all of that. And I encourage you that, like, while you should be saying yes to all of these things, try to get as narrow of a focus as possible. It's going to help you set these goals and kind of track your successes. You know, what's the most narrow focus possible, and then you can kind of branch out from there. All right. So then obviously your success is going to look different depending on what your goals are. So on this whole idea of going viral, right? If your post gets 1 million views, but no one ends up clicking on a link and buying your product, are you going to count that as a success for your business, right? The answer might be yes, right? If your goal is to get as much visibility as possible, that's a huge success, right? That's a 1 million new people seeing your services or your products. That's fantastic. But if your goal is to gain new clients, obviously that's not a huge success. You didn't gain any new clients through that post. If you have 10,000 followers, but you're noticing that people are not engaging with your content, is that successful? Again, that's going to be all determined up to you and what your priorities are. But if you, again, are looking for that visibility, fantastic. You have a bunch of new followers that are kind of staying involved and tracking what's going on. But if you're really focused on that community building, maybe that resource sharing, you're probably not going to see that as much of a success, right? But let's say you share a resource, maybe you have a informational type blog or something like that, and you know that 3 people read it and they got great benefit from it, whether they commented that they had, got benefit out of that, or maybe you ended up seeing them in person and they were talking about it. Are you counting that as a success? Again, visibility, right? 3 people, not as great as 1 million people. That's very obvious. But if your goal is to build that local community and just share those resources and feel that they're making an impact, that's going to be a huge success compared to any other post that might, quote unquote, go viral. So think through those things. I encourage people, like, I'm a pen and paper kind of gal, like make a little marketing plan. Turn this into a to-do list of creating your goals. What does success look like? And monitor all of those different things. All right. So here are some tips of what you might want to think about instead, other than just your post going viral. Think about your target market. At the end of the day, it always comes back to your target market. And like I said before, social media is your widest umbrella. That's, it's an international platform, right? But really think about who your customers, your clients, your volunteers are. They might be local, maybe they're statewide, national, who knows? Maybe you're at the point where you're taking international business. That's awesome. But think about who that target is. And then if you have a post that goes viral, how many of those views are within that market, right? So if you're only local in Harford County and, a majority of your business happens in Harford County, your post could go viral within Harford County. That is a possibility. And you could look at those statistics and you could see that you got 100,000 views and, a majority of those people are in Harford County. Awesome. That fits within your target market. Huge success, right? Or you could look at a post that has 100,000 views, look at it and go, oh, a majority of these views are coming from California or China or anywhere else in the world, but my target market is Harford County. Not going to be as much of a success, right? Because even though, who knows, those people might turn into be potential clients, but if you are only equipped to handle local business, you might not really be ready and might not see as much success from that type of virality, so to say. So think about that and think about what you are prepared to take on and handle. And then just like you're going to have goals for your business, goals for your marketing efforts, I encourage you to set goals for individual posts. So just like in that first exercise, think about, why are you advertising what are you advertising in this post? Why are you posting it in the first place? And there's a lot of different reasons why you're going to post things on social media. But think about what it is that you want people to do or how you want people to react when they see your post pop up in their feed, right? So in certain instances like this one, you want people to make a purchase, sign up for a webinar, click on a link and take some form of action. Other posts are going to be completely informative. You just have information that you want to share with the public, and that's a great reason to use social media as well. You might want to connect either with new people or connect people with each other. People use social media a lot nowadays to meet new people, continue to grow connections. So think about these individual goals for individual posts, because that's going to impact what you see as a success and what you don't see as a success, right? So think about all of those things too. Lastly, it's always important to collaborate with one another. Do not compare yourself, your business, your marketing to anybody else's, because it's going to be completely different. It doesn't matter if you are in similar industries or you might even have similar target markets, but at the end of the day, your goals are going to be completely different than anybody else's goals. So focus on the goals you have, what you're counting as success when it comes to your media, and don't look at anybody else's. It's very easy to fall into that trap of, oh, this person's post did so much better than mine, and what am I doing wrong? Don't look at any of that. Just look at what you're working on, what you're doing, and doing it to the best of your ability, right? And I always tell people, we're here as a small business community. We are here to work together. We are here to work towards common goals, to collaborate. And I encourage you to do that. And anytime that you do that, I then encourage you to share it accordingly. So if you're working with people on joint efforts, events, whatever that might look like, shout them out in that. Be sure to, share posts and tag each other, comment on each other's posts. At the end of the day, you're going to see a lot more success that way, than just hundreds of thousands of views on a post that are coming from places that you're not ever going to see results from. Focus on keeping it within your market and working together, and kind of building that community, which is what we're going to get into next. All right. So creating community on social media. Let me back this up on here. So I think for those of you that use social media on a somewhat regular basis, I think we can all agree that in recent years, it's, we have these groups of people that have come together and have created really awesome communities and ways to connect with people in similar situations, similar markets on social media. And it's a really cool thing to watch happen. At the same time, I think we can all say that we know that does not replace in-person community, and that there is a huge difference in an online community versus an in-person community, right? You always have those moments of people that have, oh, like, these are my Facebook friends. Haven't talked to any of these people in probably 10 years, but we're Facebook friends, right? That kind of difference. So when you're creating this community on social media, especially for your business or your organization, there's a couple things to think about and kind of walking that line between building a really solid community that mimics an in-person community, but doesn't replace it. Hopefully if that makes sense. So first things first, I always tell people, use consistent branding across all your platforms, right? You want to make sure that people not only recognize you for you, but then they can expect the same type of content, the same quality of service, just from that instantaneous brand recognition, right? So across all your social media platforms, kind of regardless of what they might be, you're going to want that to match your website. You're going to want that to match any in-print marketing that you do. You're going to want that to match different signs or or anything you might have like in your office. Not saying that they have to be exact, but you're going to want that consistent branding that people can recognize and know, when I see this logo, this is who I'm talking to. I know these people. I know what they stand for. I know what they offer. So I always encourage people to, keep that branding consistent. Using positive and approachable language. This I always tell people, social media, even though, we see a lot more of, like with the rise of TikTok, a lot more video marketing happening, a majority of social media is still text-based, right? And with any text-based anything, there's a lot more room for error and there's a lot more room for miscommunication, right? So think about, like, how many times you've texted people and you mean one thing, they take it in a completely different way, and it becomes a whole mess. It's very easy for that to happen on social media as well, purely because text just doesn't convey the same emotions as talking in person does. So when you're crafting a post with a text component with a description, you almost have to be overtly positive, right? And I encourage you to do that. You definitely want to keep your language within kind of the confines of your industry. But sometimes that means being a little extra excited, a little extra positive to get that messaging across. Just because when you're reading something on text, it doesn't always have that same enthusiasm as if someone was saying it in person. So just keep that in mind, that whatever you're writing, people are going to be reading versus hearing out loud. And I'll also add to this too, depending on what industry you're in, different industries can kind of have their own special jargon that they throw around. Try to avoid jargon that is so industry specific that the general public is not going to know what you're talking about, right? Or if you do, try to explain some of the key words that you use in your industry, right? That's a huge educational piece, and can be something that you actually use to your advantage when building that community. But make sure that, like, you're explaining any acronyms or any sort of language that the general public just might not hear or know on a daily basis. So think about that when you're putting that messaging together too. Encouraging connections within your post. This is something I always encourage people to do, and you don't have to feel guilty about doing it. I don't know, some people do. When you're creating content, especially if you're focused on building community, maybe it's an educational piece, anything like that, put it in the text of that post what you are asking people to do. So feel free to put that in there of, share this post with someone you think could benefit from this information, or tag a friend in the comments to join you for this event, or, anything like that, that kind of fosters those connections, is not only going to build and kind of boost the visibility of your content, but then you're encouraging those connections to happen. And even if they don't, even if people don't do any of the things that you're asking them to do, it sets that tone, right? It sets that tone of, we are a business or an organization that cares about fostering community, right? So feel free to do that. Feel free to, ask for things like subscribe to our newsletter or follow us for more updates, things like that. You can put that right into the post. Some people will actually put that like in a comment and then pin that comment to the top. You can do it that way. A lot of different ways, but just think about that, and encouraging the connections to just kind of happen organically that way. Dealing with the negativity. I know nobody wants to, but it's important that we do. Regardless of how fantastic your organization is, how fantastic your social media is, there will be negativity purely because it's just the internet, and that is how the internet works sometimes. But I encourage you to deal with it when it happens. Do not ignore it. A lot of times when you ignore negativity online, it tends to spiral. and then you're dealing with issues that you don't want to deal with, you didn't need to deal with, and they kind of get out of hand. So, you know, you're going to run into those instances where you get a negative review or a negative comment or message or whatever that looks like. I always recommend to people deal with it as soon as possible and get it off of the internet. So 9 times out of 10, you know, say it's a comment somebody leaves on a post, you know, that they saying they just had the worst experience with your company, right? First thing I would do is reply to said comment and just be very apologetic. Hey, I'm so sorry that you had such a negative experience. Please reach out to me either at this email address, this phone number, and we'll handle it for you. Just keep it simple and get it off of the internet. 9 times out of 10, you will never hear from that person ever again. And in the instances that you do hear from those people again, you can have a one-on-one conversation with that person. Usually they have either forgotten about the situation or it has de-escalated to a point that it's not going to be as big of a problem as maybe you think it is. But I encourage you to just kind of handle it, deal with it then and there. It is up to you, and I would recommend that you kind of have these guidelines in place. If you do have instances where you receive comments that are obviously spam, obviously very inappropriate, whatever that looks like, and just kind of have the rules in the back of your mind of what your organization wants to do in those circumstances, whether that is, you know, removing that comment, blocking that profile, that sort of thing. But if it's something just of someone expressing a frustration, again, assuming that it's not terrible or anything like that, just try to handle it and try to remove it, you know, get it off of the internet. All right, popping into the chat really quick. Okay, good question, Ashley. So you directly ask for the comment or review to be removed? Yes and no. So again, up to you. If you have, if you're looking at a comment that you're just like, yeah, this is not good. We don't want this on the internet. You can remove it yourself. 9 times out of 10, if it's on a profile that you manage, you can remove it yourself. Just go in, click the 3 little dots, delete the comment, and take it from there. Reviews are a whole nother thing. Usually if it's a review, like if it's a Google review, or even Facebook reviews, you can't do that by yourself. You have to request either to Google or to Meta to remove that. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, if they ever remove the comment, it takes forever. So in those instances, like reviews can be turned off. I know like in Meta, you can just turn them off, but it then turns off any review you've ever gotten. Or on things like Google, you'll see people that respond and kind of give the same brief overview, you know, so sorry that you had this experience. Please reach out to us to resolve said issue. I would definitely handle it that way. And then if you choose to escalate it to a point to ask for it to be removed, you can do that. Just know it's going to take a little while. So, but great question. Thank you. All righty. Awesome. All right. And then kind of like we mentioned before, but tag people and businesses when you work together. It's just a really nice way to show your collaboration in the community, highlight other businesses and other people that are doing great work. So I encourage you to do that. I will leave a note of caution with the @followers option. A lot of people are using this. It's a relatively new option where either in your post or in a comment, instead of tagging an individual, you can just type in @followers and it will send a notification to anyone that follows your profile. Pluses and minuses to this option. So I'll just say, you know, do what seems to work best for you. But I think in this instance, if you are specifically really trying to craft that tight-knit community, I would argue against using the @followers option for this reason. So if I'm on Facebook and I'm, looking through my profile, I get a notification that says, "Hey, so and so tagged you in a post." My immediate first thought is, "Oh, cool. This person that we talked to or worked with, has content that they think I will like or that they want me to know about, something personalized for me." But then I click on said notification. It brings me to the post and I see it just says @followers. At least personally for me, that creates a little bit of immediate disappointment of, oh, what I thought was a personalized connection of this person wanting me to see this, they really just wanted to share it with everybody, not just me. Um, so if you have used this option and you've seen success with it, if you've seen that that has really helped, increase the engagement on your post, awesome. That's great. Have at it. Um, I would just be cautious of using it all the time, or especially if you're really trying to focus in on creating a really tight-knit community. I think sometimes it can have that connotation of depersonalizing social media even more than it already is. So I would just say use it sparingly and just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Alrighty. Sweet. I'm going to pause really quick just to see if there's any other questions. I know Carly had asked if it is recorded. Yes, everything will be recorded today and I'll get that out to you afterwards. But any other questions so far? No, we're doing good. Awesome. All right. Why? What time? There we go. Perfect. All right. Oh, nope. Just kidding. More questions. Awesome. Love it. Okay. All right. So first question in the chat, how often should you post? You're going to see different answers based on your industry. Honestly, I do it based on my time in my schedule. Most people are going to recommend that you post somewhere between like 3 to 4 times a week, all the way up through once a day. I think that's definitely dependent on the industry you're in, the type of information you're sharing, and also just your time commitment. I would say it's always better to post, quality over quantity. So if you can only get 3 posts out in a week, but they're like really good, then go for it. If you have the time to commit to a post every single day, go for it. I think you'll probably see a little bit more success the more often you post, kind of with that like once a day model. But that's not to say that you won't see success with posting fewer times. So that was kind of a vague answer, but hopefully that helps. Okay. How do you get away with text and graphics with not being ADA compliant? Good question. So ADA compliancy is fantastic and a pain in the butt. Not because people don't deserve to have ADA compliancies, they do, absolutely 100%. But because the technology hasn't caught up to a lot of the rules and regulations that we have. So when you have text in a graphic, what I recommend is
still just, oh my God.
I usually recommend including whatever text is in a graphic in the body of the post itself. Any sort of like e-reader or system like that is going to pick up on the text in the body. So just repeat that information. And then if you're doing, this is a little bit more complicated, but graphics on your website, emails, that sort of thing, make the image description as robust as possible. Again, for those e-readers and things like that, that they're going to pick up on. So that's usually how I work around that. Of course, videos should come with captions. Most of the time, those will auto-generate for you now to do different things like that. But that's usually what I would recommend, is just kind of repeating that text in multiple places for people. Sometimes you can't tag certain businesses. Yes. So you can turn on privacy settings that will prevent people from tagging you. So that might be something that's happening. Or sometimes there is a limit to the number of businesses you can tag in one post. Sometimes you run into that issue. But I would encourage you, definitely tag people when you can. If it's an option where it doesn't seem to be linking up correctly, then you can just give them a shout out, mention their name. Maybe, if you know for sure that they have a profile on the platform you're using, just tell people to go over there and check them out and follow them. But likely that's probably a privacy setting. All right. What is the best way to gain more followers? Good question. And unfortunately, I don't have a straightforward answer for you. It can depend a lot on the platform, on the industry you're in. But I would say just being consistent on social media, being, posting on a consistent schedule. Again, maybe that's once a week, maybe that's 3 times a week, maybe it's only once a week. But just keeping your content of high quality and just on a consistent schedule, for sure, is definitely going to help. You can encourage people to follow you in the posts that you do. I definitely recommend that. And then follow other people. Anytime you work with somebody, you make a new connection, meet somebody new, reach out and follow them. Not going to guarantee that they're going to follow you back, but just one more way to kind of build that connection and community. Adding music to Instagram for business accounts. Yes and no. Business accounts have a lot of copyright regulations, which is why music is complicated. You can do it, but you are limited as to what you can do. So a lot of those, quote unquote, viral video trends, you technically cannot use that music directly through Instagram. You can get it from other sources. 9 times out of 10, you will either have to pay for it, or you have to, cite your sources basically as to where you're getting the music, and how you got that to avoid those copyrights. But you'll see there's still ways to add music to your videos, to your posts. Your options will just be a little bit more limited. But that's not to say you can't do it. Definitely do it. And that's not to say that you have to use viral audio either. You can still see really great success without viral audio. If you're not, don't feel pressured to buy the rights to any sort of music. All right. Awesome questions, guys. Thank you. All right, I'm going to keep on rolling, but if you have any other questions, please drop them in the chat. I promise we'll get to them. All right, so we're going to switch gears slightly here and answer the question, is email marketing dead? And of course, like every other question, the answer is yes and no. So a few recent stats. It's estimated currently that about 64% of small businesses utilize email marketing in some capacity, which is a pretty high statistic. And then it's estimated that each dollar that is spent on email marketing is expected to yield a $35 to $40 return on your investment, which is pretty huge. But yet, despite all of the great numbers and the great statistics, I hear time and time again from people, my emails aren't working. I'm sending them, I don't get any response. Or People aren't even opening my emails. They're not clicking on anything. They're not buying anything. What's the point of doing the email marketing if nobody's reading them? Which I completely agree with. There is no point in email marketing if nobody's reading your emails. But that trick is figuring out what has changed so that you can execute an email that is going to get you the results you want. Email marketing, like everything else online, has changed significantly over the past couple years. And I would say even more significantly in the past year or so. There's just been a lot of changes that Google's done, Outlook's done to marketing or to emails that we'll talk about. But also just with the way that people interact online is changing. As social media changes and different things like that, it ends up impacting how people interact on the internet, and that includes email. So we're going to go over what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly of email marketing. The good, obviously, being the things that you want to do, that will hopefully be helpful. The bad, the things that you should try your best to avoid doing. And then the ugly. There's some ugly things when it comes to email marketing that are just things that you have to deal with, that are annoying and complicated, but you got to make the most of it. So we'll go over those as well. All right, so the good, always start with a personal connection. It's becoming more and more important in social media and email marketing that people are looking for that personal connection. Really easy way to do this is just make sure the email starts off with their name. Just, good morning, so-and-so. Easy. Whether that is an email that you are sending through your account, or if that's a mass email that, if you're using a platform like Constant Contact or MailChimp and you have a newsletter or something like that that goes out, there's settings that you turn on where it'll just automatically pull their name. So when they open up that email in their inbox, it has their name right at the top. I encourage you to do that. And just to, again, foster that personal connection, we're fostering that community. Right along with that comes tailored content. We're seeing more and more people are looking for the content that is the most relevant to them. This can be a little bit trickier to navigate depending on your industry, depending on what kind of email marketing you're looking at doing. But a really good way to do this is to break down your email list into groups. Again, relevant to your industry. But maybe, this is a group of people that signed up for an event. This is a group of people that recently bought this particular item of ours. And then you can kind of break down your content as to what you think those people would like, right? These people seem to like events. They've registered for our events in the past. The emails that we send them are going to include more upcoming events. Easy enough. Versus the people, oh, you bought this product in the past. Here's some recommended products we think you might like based on those purchases. Things like that are a little bit more tailored. Again, keeping that personal connection for people. Building out a strong email list. Something that's important and will be something that I encourage you to monitor as you continue email marketing in general, but building out a strong list. Never, ever, ever, ever purchase a list of emails online, ever. A, they usually tend to be spam and not legitimate anyway. B, you're just picking random people. Again, we want to stay focused on our target market, and we want to stay focused on the people that are interested in who we are and what we do, that are part of our community. So I encourage you to, build out that email list of, have people come to you, right? Have a link to register for your emails or sign up for your newsletters on your website. You can share that on your social media platforms. If you're actively trying to build up your list, anytime you go out, if you're holding an event or you go out to a networking event or something like that, have a sign-up sheet for people. If you have if you're doing a table setup somewhere, have a place where people can sign up on the spot and just give you their email address and sign up for your newsletters, things like that. But again, it all comes back to that personal connection. You want a strong emailing list so that people are, again, actually reading your emails. You're taking a lot of time and effort into putting a beautiful email together with relevant content for people. You want them to read it, right? So build out that strong list of recipients. It's going to help you a lot. And again, quality over quantity, and this goes back and forth, depends on your industry, depends on what you're doing. But at the end of the day, focus on producing a quality email rather than just a large quantity of emails. Emails, I would say in general, you're not going to do as often as social media. I think if you sent an email per day to people, they'd get annoyed with you pretty quick. So I would say anywhere from like once a week to once a month is probably a good sweet spot, depending on what you're doing. But focus on building that quality content. Depends on what you do too. You know, you might find that you don't have enough happening or enough to share every single week to provide new and relevant updates. So do it once a month and just have it like jam-packed full of information. That's great. Just focus on building out that quality for people. And lastly, optimizing for mobile. And I'll give the caveat of depends on your industry. Again, think about your ideal customer. But more and more we're seeing people are on their phones instead of their computers. Even if they're working in a business industry, they're using their phone for a lot of their emails. So you want to make sure that your email is optimized for mobile. It looks good on a mobile device. Everything works and lines up correctly. If you've ever done this for either email or web design, anything like that, usually you'll know there's two different views you can look at, a desktop view for computers and then a mobile view for phones. For whatever reason, you always click on that mobile view and everything's out of order, nothing's lined up right, for whatever reason. So take the time to go back, make sure it looks good on both platforms. But then think about your market too, right? So like here at the Chamber, we are a business organization, right? All of our members are businesses. Most of those people are at a computer for most of the day. Not all, but a lot of them are. A lot of them are, work for a business. They're going to be in front of their computer. They're going to be reading our emails from their computer. But if you're somebody who your customer is probably going to be on the go, then definitely make sure you're optimizing for a mobile device. All right. Excuse me, jumping into the bad. So something that's definitely changing and has changed over the past year or so is using emails to sell products and services. Yes, you definitely want to still include your products and services in your emails, but you don't want to only sell people on things. People get tired of it and they tend to either ignore your emails or opt out just because they don't want to be inundated with, buy this, buy this, buy this, buy this. So I will say, like, especially obviously, if you're a product-based business, you need to sell product. And that is totally okay. But just make sure that you're adding in a lot of other information to kind of round out that email. So you might have, your top, new product or new service that you're offering, definitely highlighted in there. But then you might share just some general free information, general, industry information. Maybe you have a blog or something similar that you want to highlight in there. Maybe you have an upcoming event. Try to round it out so people don't feel pressured to buy, but you still want to promote those things, but you don't want anybody to feel forced into buying anything. Another one is sending mass emails when you already have a personal connection with somebody. More and more, we're seeing that personal connection makes a difference, which I know is tough because that requires a lot more time and energy on your part. But I promise you it is better. You will see a better result in the long run. So I do encourage you to do that. But what I mean by this is, let's say you go out to a networking event and you meet a new person, you have a great conversation, you exchange business cards, And you have a great conversation about working together in the future. Awesome. When you go back to your office, back to wherever, when you're doing your work, do not add them to your mass emailing list for two reasons. One, they didn't ask to be put on that list. Two, well, unless they did, obviously, then do it. But, and then two, you have made a personal connection, and now it is time to solidify that connection before adding additional information to the relationship. So my recommendation would be you get back to the office, you send them a personal email from your email address that just says, hey, it was so great to meet you. So glad that we had a chance to talk about X, Y, and Z. So excited to partner with you on X, Y, and Z. This is going to be great. All of those things. And then maybe at the bottom of your email, you can add, hey, if you're interested, here's the link to sign up for our newsletter. It'll be full of great information relevant to what we've talked about. Give them the option to do that. And then that way you've created that personal connection. What happens a lot of times is, you've gone out, you've met these people, you've exchanged information, you might be really excited about working together. This is awesome. And then the next communication you receive from them is a mass generated email asking you to buy their product. Well, that's annoying, right? You're really excited about working together or planning a new event together. And now you have received this email that is not relevant to your conversation, not relevant to what you talked about. And I think can again immediately kind of disappoint people, even if you didn't mean to. You might have really great intentions of like, hey, this is actually relevant information to what they want to hear. And that's great. But I would recommend that you give them that option to come to you first and then share that, rather than just gathering up all of the business cards at the end of a networking event and entering them into a list. It's a lot better when you have that personal connection. You've solidified that relationship first, and then they sign up for your newsletter. All right. And then lastly, again, making sure you have defined goals so that you can track what is successful and what is not successful. This goes for email marketing too. Every time you send out an email, there should be a reason why you're sending out that email, right? And different emails are going to be full of all different information. A lot of that's going to overlap, but think about ways of, maybe this particular email is for an event that you want people to sign up for, or you want people to sponsor, or something like that. If your goal is to have people register, then you should be looking at, okay, how many people clicked on this link and how many people registered for it? Success. If you have something where you're just sharing general information, resources, a blog, again, you probably want to look at how many people are reading that information, but maybe then you care a little bit more about how many people opened it, how many people are looking at the content. So again, make sure you have those defined goals. You're probably going to want an overall goal for email marketing in general. And then you might have individual goals for each email that goes out, just to give you a better sense of how we're doing. Because if you don't know, and if you're not tracking that, then you're not going to know what works, what doesn't work, how to switch it up, try new things, get people's attention. So I definitely recommend that you do that. Lastly, the ugly. Things that we just have to deal with because we have to deal with them. First is the dreaded spam filter. I'm sure you've all noticed that even in regular emailing back and forth, spam filters have gotten even worse recently, or stronger technically. So there's been a lot of changes that have happened in the past couple of months to a year with emailing platforms. Google made some big changes. Microsoft made some big changes of just how they communicate with one another, which unfortunately means for emailing, a lot of things get caught in spam filters. It's unavoidable. The spam filters exist for a reason. There's a couple things you can try to do, and again, it depends on the people that are receiving your email. You can make sure if you're using a third-party platform, like Constant Contact, MailChimp, making sure that your domain is registered is not the right word. There's a special word for it, but basically, telling the computer that that third party is actually you are actually sending that email through your own business domain. And then, there's a couple different things that people can do on the receiving end as far as adding your email to their contact list. Usually I always tell people interactions are helpful. Yes, your domain is verified. Thank you, Claudia. I don't know why that word was coming to me. Make sure your domain's verified. But people can interact with your email. So every time you open an email, click on a link that's in there, something like that, it's teaching the system that this is the type of content you like and that you want to see. So it's more likely to stick it in your inbox instead of filtering it through a spam filter. Obviously, it needs to actually get to your inbox first for you to be able to do that. So you might have some times where you have to, tell people, hey, check your spam, check your junk folder, look out for this email. But usually with the repetition, it will more likely end up in people's inboxes. But just one of those things that we got to deal with. Second is opting in and unsubscribing options. So these are required by law. You must have an opt-in, opt-out on all of your emails. Usually this is built in for you, especially if you're using a third-party service. It's that little teeny tiny unsubscribe link at the bottom of an email. You are required to have one of those. And then usually an opt-in people put on their website. You'll either see it as a pop-up or something like that that says, sign up for our email, sign up for our newsletter. To do that, again, it usually works best when people have the option to come and go, right? I know you don't want people to unsubscribe from your emails, but you need to give them that option. And then you need to give them the option to opt in too. So just make sure that you have all of that set up, that all those links work, and that they're available for people. And then maintaining your email list. So again, going back to, building out this strong email list, you also have to maintain it. So some of this might be done for you. If you're using, I use Constant Contact here at the chamber. So, they will kind of filter out of like, these people, the email bounce back a million times. So it automatically stops sending them to people. Things like that. You want to maintain that because the more people that you have on your list that are not actually receiving your emails can hurt your kind of ratings as it comes through a spam filter. So if Google or whatever is receiving that email and it goes, oh, half of the people that received this email, Google put it in a spam folder, we're going to put it in a spam folder, right? So maintaining that email list is going to be important. So it does not have to be super often, maybe once a month, maybe once a quarter. Just kind of go through your email list and take a look and go, oh, this person's email bounced back as non-deliverable. The email doesn't exist anymore. Great, delete it, gone. And that's going to help avoid those spam filters, first of all. But that's going to help with, your opening rates, and your different rates like that, just because the number of people being sent that email are actually receiving that email. And that's just going to help boost your ratings overall. So I do recommend kind of go through and take a look at that, delete anything that doesn't need to be in there, anywhere between like once a month and once a quarter. Especially if you are using a third party platform and you see that bounce rate, so the number of emails that are bouncing back, if you see that starting to creep up and that percentage is getting a little higher than normal, definitely take a look at that list. Try to bring that percentage down. Alrighty. So that is the good, the bad, and the ugly. Lastly, I want to wrap it up here with just some resources for chamber members when it comes to your marketing. So for those of you on the call that are members of the chamber, take advantage of these because they're part of your membership. So you can take advantage of our Facebook group. We have a bunch of different social media posting benefits of all different shapes and sizes. If you think that those are in line with your target market, I definitely recommend that you take advantage of those. If you don't know if that is within your target market, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll chat about it. And I would be happy to make some suggestions and recommendations based on what you're looking for. Definitely utilize the Member Information Center for emails. For those that might not be familiar, when you are logged in to the MIC, there's a directory tab at the top. It's got the whole list of all the different chamber members, but there's actually a little email button where you can, kind of sort the directory based on a whole bunch of different stuff, different industries and things like that. And then you can send mass emails to that list of members. I always say it's a really great in between of sending a one-on-one personal email and a mass email, because it's limited to 50 members total at one time. And it still comes through the system and comes into their inbox like a personal email does. So on their end, it'll look like just a regular email. But that's a really great way to connect with people. I encourage people to do that. That's what it's there for. Connect with other members, work together, share information. And it's a really great way just to say, hey, like, I'm a fellow member. I want to work with other members. Let's get together for coffee. So I definitely encourage you to take advantage of that. And then take advantage of the cost savings programs. All chamber members get 20% off of Constant Contact just for being a chamber member. So take advantage of that. You can sign up on our website, just hartfordchamber.org under the cost savings tab. Even if you already have a Constant Contact account, you can still have that discount applied. And it applies to any of their packages. So it doesn't matter if you got the smallest or the largest, you get 20% off for just being a chamber member. So definitely take advantage of that as well. Alrighty. Yeah, 3 minutes over, not too bad. All right. Well, I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for joining me this morning. This is my contact information here at the chamber on the screen. Please jot it down. I would love to chat with you if you have any further questions, if you want some more one-on-one time to figure things out. I know that it can be very overwhelming, so I'm happy to do that. Please reach out to me. And I will take this time to open it up. If there are any more questions, feel free. Feel free to either unmute and ask, drop them in the chat. We'll wrap up with a couple more questions. And if not, I hope everybody has a fantastic afternoon, and I hope I'll chat with you soon.